So today we are going to have a very wonderful conversation about the role that such a publication can have on an industry. What is the place that publication, what is the place that a magazine as such could play? How can it influence language service? How can it influence an industry? And for that, we have wonderful panelists in our midst, which we would like to acknowledge. We would also like to acknowledge every one of you, everyone who has made time to be here. We sincerely appreciate your time. So while we are waiting for a few other people to join in, we will kindly request you to continue enjoying the music that will be playing in the background. We will start in 3 minutes. There are some few key people we are waiting to start. So at exactly 10:07, we will be launching. Thank you so much. And as we are waiting, kindly continue enjoying the melody that our DJ from the technical team, Jerry Deswasi, will be sharing us. Thank you. So thank you so much, Jerry. Thank you to every one of you who has made time available to be here with us today. So as early indicated, today is a historic moment because we are going to assist to the launch of AfroLingual Magazine, which happened to be one of the first publications dedicated exclusively to the language service industry. As you know, information is a key for action. Action, no matter how strong it is, if it is not properly informed, will not have the same impact, will not have the same power. And we all know how the language service industry in Africa is still emerging, is still growing. 2 years ago, when Kabod Language Services was established, we noticed that a lot needed to be done at the level of structuring and putting in place systems and tools that will enable the visibility, and more collaboration among a language service professional. And we therefore initiated, some community of practices like the platform for African language translator and interpreters, the marketplace for African translator and interpreters. And today we are here to share one of the latest projects that we have been working on collaboratively with other language service professionals. So for this launch, we have wonderful panelists who are part of us, and we are very blessed and excited for the conversation that we'll be having. The agenda for today is made up of 4 key moments. The first part, we are going to learn more about the origin and the vision behind the AfroLingual magazine. The second part, we are going to look at, the multilingual magazine and what has been, its influence on the language service industry. We'll also have a panel discussion, and afterward, we are going to share what are some of the existing opportunities for collaboration. But before zooming into all of this, let's start first with the introduction. So as you will notice, there is a chat just down your screen where we kindly invite every one of you to go there, just introduce yourself, indicate your name, indicate what you do, whether you are a translator, whether you are an interpreter, a localization manager, and if possible, anything interesting about you, for others to easily connect with you. So once we do that at the level of the chat, we will also like to acknowledge the panelists who have made the effort to be here with us today. So I will start first with Mr. Johan Botha. Johan, Johan, Johan Botha. Johan, are you here with us?
Yes, I am.
Yes,
Hi. Lovely to be here.
exactly. So Johan is the director of Folio Online, one of the major LSP on the African continent. We are also blessed to have Isabella. Isabella, are you here from GALA?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you for inviting me.
Wonderful, wonderful. We are also happy to have you here. And also Florian Faes, who is the CEO of Slator.
Hey, Christian, thanks so much for having me here today.
Thank you, Florian, for making time for us. So as you can see, our panel is ready and we will be kickstarting with everything very soon. But in the chat, please, can we introduce ourselves in the chat, because we sincerely believe that the launch is also an opportunity for networking and getting to know more about ourselves. So you can use the chat for that purpose. So we are going to start, therefore, with the first component of the agenda, which is basically about why AfroLingual Magazine, why at this time, where are we going, what are we trying to achieve. So, as you will, okay, please, I can see some element. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so as earlier indicated, every industry needs systems. Every industry needs components that will enable it to grow. And one of the major elements in an industry is a platform for knowledge sharing, a platform for ideas, a platform where discussion can be made, a platform where, practitioners in the industry can openly, share their ideas, interact with one another, and constructively make the conversation move forward. As we all know, conversations are one of the bottom line that leads to innovation. Through discussions, through research, through publication, we are able of learning, we are able of discovering, what is being done in other spaces. We are able of knowing what, others are doing and draw inspiration from it. As we will all be aware, the African language service industry is very young. I believe personally that it has less than 40 years of existence. So far, most of the structure LSP that are existing on the continent have approximately, between 10 to 20 years, which means that the majority of the language service providers that we have on the continent are still young, are still growing, are still emerging. And there is a lot happening in the industry, a lot of innovation here, a lot of innovation there. We will notice how African language technology professionals are developing technological tools that facilitate the use of our languages. We have documented at the level of Kabod how some have developed tools such as, an Igbo API that make it easier to basically use technology to have access to the Igbo language. We also know of Ghana NLP, which has developed, a technological tool that enables the translation from English to Twi and other Ghanaian languages through the Kaya app or the Kaya platform. We are also aware of Lelapa AI in South Africa, who has developed also a platform, that is similar to an LLM and basically enable interaction with South African languages. And there are many other innovations, there are many other practices which are existing as such, and sometimes it could be difficult to capture and know what is happening in the industry. It could be difficult to know what are the trends, what is the African agenda in terms of language service in the language industry, who are those who are doing what, and a publication as such is key. As we all know, a publication as AfroLingual also serves the purpose of education, because many LSP, especially freelancers or language service professional, are individuals who have, like proactively or voluntarily, started doing translation or interpretation without necessarily being trained, without necessarily knowing the dynamics, the ethics of the work. So you will notice that most of the freelancers, most of the language service professionals which are existing on the continent do not necessarily have a certification as translator, or a certification as interpreter, or a certification as LSP managers, or project managers in the language industry. So a platform like AfroLingual also enable that learning, does also enable that continuous professional development. By sharing what is being done, we are also learning how to do it. So we strongly believe that through the AfroLingual platform, there will be a greater awareness of the practices in the language service industry. And this greater awareness will result in a greater engagement, a greater interest, and a greater investment in the language service industry. So basically, that's the backbone of why Kabod decided to put this magazine in place. Now, these were the observation that we were able of perceiving when we started Kabod Language Services, that there was this need of a publication. But there was one major publication that ultimately pushed our desire to make this a reality, and that publication was multilingual. For many of you here, you may be familiar with Multilingual Media, which is one of the department of NINSI, and Multilingual is one of the most recognized publication in the language service industry. So through Multilingual, you are able of learning about what's happening in the language service industry, what are the practices of businesses in connection with languages, how businesses are localizing their software, how businesses are localizing their platforms, how businesses are, collaborating with language service professional. So Multilingual up to now is a key reference, in the language service industry. It's a key reference for anybody who would like to know what are the trends, what are the practice, what are the ideas that are currently leading in the industry. Multilingual also is serving as a learning resources for many who would like to learn more about, the opportunities available in the language service industry. So Multilingual is that key driver, that key source of inspiration that has made us realize that if it is good to have a global publication such as Multilingual, it will also be interesting to have one that will focus on the African language industry, because even though it was possible through Multilingual to have content that comes from Africa, even though it was possible through Multilingual to often see news, to often see, information related to the African language service industry, we thought that it was also interesting to have a dedicated resource, a dedicated publication that would go further by digging deeper, by going, to the people, by going inside, and having more or a near experience, having a deeper engagement with the language service professional. And we are able of having this deeper engagement with language service professional because of the existing community of practices which are available. As you all know, Kabod has, contributed to the establishment of key language service, key community of practice for language professional. The first one is the network for African language translators and teachers. African language translators and teachers. This is a LinkedIn group where if you are able of teaching translating or interpreting in African languages. Through that LinkedIn group, you can connect with other like-minded professionals, learn about what's happening, learn about progress being made by others in the same industry. We are also in touch, with language professionals through a WhatsApp group known as the marketplace for African translators and interpreters. There are many feedback which we have received from members in the group who are able of quickly getting translators, quickly getting interpreters, quickly getting people to contribute on their language project, language technology project, language revitalization projects. So that platform, the MATI, is where you can quickly find job opportunities, information about key things that everybody can easily share through the group. So our connection, our proximity with language service professional, is enabling us to know what's happening, to know the challenges that language service professionals are experiencing, to know how at the level of pricing, sometimes we have inequities at the pricing that is being offered to translators in the global south compared to translators in the global north. By our proximity with a language service professional, more than knowing their experiences, we can also represent, we can also carry it, and increase the visibility that it has. And we are doing it currently through two platforms. Number one, a newsletter that is dedicated to the language service industry, a monthly newsletter, which everyone can subscribe to. And number two, we have a channel, known as Opportunities for Linguists, Translators, and Interpreters, a platform where we regularly share information related to language service. So we are going to have a quick view of the magazine, and before that quick view of the magazine will come directly after this official launch. So just wait a second. We are going to play, a short video to officially launch the magazine. Afterward, I will be taking you through the magazine itself. Afterward, we are going to zoom into the panel conversation. So if you have questions concerning anything that has been said, feel free to ask them in the chat and we'll be glad to answer them. So I'm sharing the video. Yes, hooray. So the magazine is officially launched, and I'm going to take us through quickly some of the key elements you can expect or find in the magazine. Afterward, we will be having a conversation around it. So my colleagues will be sharing the link for those of you who are interested in downloading the magazine. It is freely downloadable on our platform, kabodgroup.com/AfroLingual. So as you can see, here is the wonderful magazine which has gathered us here today. This edition is the first one as indicated, and it's going to be on a quarterly basis. This one covers October, November, and December. So the second edition will be available by next month, next year, in January 2025. So any of you who is interested in contributing and advertising, feel free to reach out. And we were very honor to have as the at the front page Mr. Alfred Tawali, which is a key and major player in the language service industry. He's one of the key figure behind the East Africa, translation and interpreters, professional network. He's also the one behind IPO, the African International Translation Conference. So it is someone that if you are in the language industry, you definitely have to know him. So in the table of content, you get the theme of this first edition. The theme of this edition is visibility, because as initially indicated in our opening remarks, the goal behind this magazine is to give more visibility to what is happening in the African language industry. Who is doing what should we know, and how is the conversation moving. You also have a description of our vision behind AfroLingual, Kabod, and Industry Insight is the space where we basically present to you what are the things that currently affect the African language industry, some tech innovation. At the level of perspective, we have an article from Mr. Samuel, who is basically sharing how to redefine collaboration between linguists and tech company. The spotlight, we have an interview with Johan Botha, the director of Folio Online, and we also present some African language heroes. As you know, there is this wonderful event known as the African Language Conference, an event organized by Mrs. Avishta and Bolingo Consult, to which Kabod was associated this year. It's a wonderful event for anybody who would like to know those who are championing, those who are, contributing to language preservation, language revitalization projects. So I will quickly go through these things. So the description of the magazine, if you would like to know more about the Kabod team, this is the wonderful team which has been supporting and making this dream, this vision a reality. So here we have Jean Chao, who is the language officer for Kabod. Here we have Madam Princess Sonia, the administrator. We have also Prince Tay, who is the research and partnership. The magazine was designed by Jerry de Swasi, who is the one behind the design of the magazine. And Aris, here in blue at the back, is the one who did, who is our webmaster, who is doing the wonderful work of presenting everything that we do in a visual, appealing way on the website. And there are many more members who have joined the team so far, which you will discover soon. So what does the magazine contain? This is the where we basically explain the vision and some of the impact that we are having so far. Industry Insight, you will get to learn about upcoming events in the language service industry. You will get to know about Bolingo Consult AMI Siri, which has been approved as supplementary material for schools in Ghana. You will get to know about events that has to do with language service industry. One of those events is the annual conference organized by ALCA. ALCA stands for the Association for Language Company in Africa. It is an association which we believe every LSP should be part of. It was established by Folio Online, Bolingo Consult, TAN Translation, and Kabod Group in 2023. And the goal is basically to have a stronger front where we can together increase the visibility and profitability of a language service company on the continent. So the first conference happened recently, and you can get a summary of it in this first edition. Also,
Swear. Nigeria long read.
Mrs. K, okay, thank you. You also find in the magazine many news happening, so you definitely want to read them. At the level of the perspective, as indicated, we have this wonderful article by Mr. Samuel Olanrewaju, which is basically one of the key figure in terms of language technology. He has a wonderful platform, Linguist Islam, of about 600 members. and it's a platform you definitely want to join if you are in need of research opportunities, funding opportunities, collaboration opportunities with other, language professional on the continent. Very wonderful conversations are happening via the platform, and we strongly recommend you to join that platform. And the link also will be shared in the WhatsApp group. So in this article, basically, he indicates what are the challenges that occur in the collaboration between linguists and language tech company, and he suggests ways of overcoming those challenges. You will also find in the magazine, you will also find a spotlight by Johan Botha, where we basically get to know more his interest, his impact in the language service industry. In the magazine, you will also find the spotlight of African language heroes, like basically these champions, people who are actively working, to ensure that our languages have more visibility. One of them, which you can see here on the screen, is, please, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So one of them is Adi Namaraman, Adi Namaran Coulibaly, who is the co-organizer of the African Language Conference and the operations manager at Bolingo Consult. This is also one of the major figures which you strongly need to know in the language service industry, a champion, someone who is building the industry diligently, and passionately. In the magazine, you will also get to know about, Ogini Bena, who is a playwright and translator, and get to discover the work that he has done. You also get to find about people like, Faith Wangi Ndungu, and many other, which we cannot, because of time, go through all. And that's why we strongly recommend you to download the magazine, discover what these wonderful people are doing, and see how best you can be part of this. Towards the end, we will enable those of you who are interested to share your ideas as to the next edition of the magazine. So that's basically about the presentation. I know it has been quite long. Now we will dive into the discussion. But before moving into the discussion, I can see we have one wonderful person in our midst, Mr. Alfred. Mr. Alfred, are you here? Mr. Alfred Tawali, are you here? As indicated, Mr. Alfred is the one on the front page.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I'm on a train, so I may not be able to do much, but I'm here and enjoying everything.
Okay, so any thought to share about this first edition of AfroLingual? What are your expectations for this magazine?
First of all, Christian, I should congratulate you. I think I follow you and I see the hard work you're doing, especially to make sure we are ahead on the global map, especially the African languages. And that one I really admire. And I haven't read the entire magazine, but I think you put in a lot of work and I'm really, really happy. So when I get to my destination, the first thing I'll do is to read a few pages before I sleep. Otherwise, congratulations. I like the profiles there in Adi and a few others I've seen. I like this guy from Toronto, Folio, the interview with Folio. Amazing stuff. So congratulations, Christian.
Thank you. Thank you also. We are following in your steps. You have been, in the industry, pushing, championing with the conference, which we know you are behind. So it's such a pleasure to bring a contribution to the existing work that leaders, and fathers who have been in the industry before us have been doing. Okay, so now we will zoom in with the conversation. And for this, I would like to welcome my wonderful panel made up of Mr. Johan Botha. Mr. Johan, are you here with us?
Yes, I am.
Wonderful. So we are going to put all of the, if you can kindly, all the speakers, put your camera on so that we can have the conversation live. Okay, so basically we have three key people who participate in this panel. Mr. Johan Botha is the director of Folio Online and the co-founder of ANCA. If you are looking at the top 10 most prolific LSP on the continent, you would definitely find Folio Online among them. And Johan Botha has been very active in the language service industry for over 20 years, participating in major localization initiatives and actively building the language service industry. I remember when we reached out to Johan for the establishment of ALCA, he quickly responded. And since then, he has been on fire, actively participating in all the initiatives that the Association of Language Company has put in place. So let's welcome Johan in our you will see emotions, right? Reactions. So you can click on the woo, 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 or you can click on the, like, if you are laughing, anything, any expression, you know, any question that you have, please do not hesitate to. A second person we have on our panel, and this is not the first time, is Isabella Massardo, she is a content strategist with GALA Global. As you know, GALA is one of the leading organizations in the area of localization. So we are blessed to have her, and she will be sharing also her experiences with her. She is a familiar with Kabod. She has participated in previous events which we have organized, and we are very happy to see her with us again today. So welcome again, Isabella.
Thank you. Thank you, Christian.
Okay. And the last but not the least is Florian Faes, who is the CEO of Slator. Slator is one of the few organizations you will find in the industry purposely and specifically dedicated to language intelligence. So we will get to know more from him, his work, his passion, why did he started Slator, and what has been the impact so far. So Florian, welcome again to the conversation.
Thank you. And congrats on the launch.
Okay, thank you. So with all our panelists here, we will zoom in the conversation. We invite you, as the conversation is going on, drop your question in the chat. If you have any question you would like to ask about the magazine, if there are questions you would like to ask about ALCA, about Slator, about GALA, please feel free to ask them in the chat. But the first question I would like to throw to the panelists is this. We live in the digital age where there is so much information already available out there, and people can quickly find, you know, quality content here and there. Why do you think it's still important to have a publication that, you know, focus on the language industry? From your own perspective, why is such important? So any one of you would like to share can quickly go on, please. Thank you.
Who wants to go first? I can go first. Oh, you go? Okay. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. Go ahead. Go ahead, Florian.
Why is it needed? Almost because there is so much information. So there's a lot of value in the curation as well, right? I mean, there's so much happening. And if you're out there in the market, you're busy with your day-to-day business, it's extremely helpful if you know that there's somebody who's actually curating all that information and puts it into a kind of digestible form and tells you what's important and what's maybe not so important. So, and then of course there's the original generation of content, like in your first edition, where you don't just curate, you also of course generate original content. But I think there's a lot of value in, putting out original content, but also in telling people what's important from all that information that's out there.
Okay. Johan, why is such publication? Why is having a magazine important to you?
Well, I think what Florian said is very important for me as well. Someone who can curate the content, because I'm not sure about you, but I am some days absolutely overwhelmed by the amount of emails I get about the industry, because I follow so many magazines and websites and newsletters and so on. So sometimes when it is so overwhelming, it's nice for me to go onto a multilingual or a Slator that can provide sort of an overview of what is going on at the moment, and then getting sort of a monthly feedback on what are the most important things, because that's I think quite reassuring for me, that I don't have that overwhelming feeling of having to read every single email and newsletter and what have you. Many times some of the articles overlap. So I think what Florian said is very important. And now that there is one focusing on the African industry, I think it's even better to have sort of a few leading resources and magazines that I can go to for insights, and obviously also for education on the industry. So I think for AfroLinguals, just like Alka, it's important because I think it fosters a sense of community among African language professionals. There is a publication that showcases what the industry and the achievements and unique challenges in the African market poses. So yeah, as congratulations from my side as well.
Okay. And Isabella, at your level, at the level of the GALA Association, what role does publication or, educational resources play in the community?
Well, first of all, I second what Florian and Johan, and I keep pronouncing Johan the Dutch way. I apologize. I still haven't, after so many years, learned how to pronounce your name. I can only second what Florian and Johan have said, and especially considering how much noise there is on social media nowadays, it's extremely difficult to understand what can be useful. And a magazine like this not only offers curated content that has been fact-checked and everything, but it also allows you to create a community, right? Which is a bit what GALA is doing. GALA is a community, and content is the way that is one of the many things that keeps the community together. All the content that GALA has produced in the last, I don't know, maybe 5 to 6 years is definitely offered, created, curated by our members, starting with articles, which are very popular among the, say, the junior localization professionals, going on with webinars, and now with the GALA Academy, which is also curated by our members. They suggest the topic, research it, prepare a program, and moving with the conference program. Johan knows something about it because it's been, I think a year or so ago, was slaving night and day to review all the proposals that that submitters had sent. So content is extremely important if you want to create a community, if you want to share knowledge, and if you want to move the whole industry, the whole localization industry forward, which is, I think, the only way to go. I don't know
Okay,
whether
thank you.
you replied. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. As you clearly indicated, content is very important for educating. And here we have Florian, who is behind Slator, which is one of the few language intelligence company for dedicated to the industry. So Florian, could you share with us what was the drive? What has led you to establish, Slator, and how has the journey been so far?
I have to go back. It's now been 10 years, which is kind of insane. So it feels like I'm rehashing stuff from way back in the past. But I was working for a language service provider. Was based in Asia, various cities, Singapore, Hong Kong, Shanghai. And that means I was a bit disconnected from kind of the core European American markets. I was out there. I was doing a lot of sales at the time. I was leading the business, but I was doing a lot of sales, went to conferences, went to events, Chamber of Commerce events, things like that. And I was, at these conferences, like life science conferences, banking conference, legal conference, just to find my clients, find clients for the LSP. And they had their own conferences, that their own magazines, that their own online information portals, etc. And at the time, I found it very hard to find information about the actual industry that I was working in, right? Mm-hmm. So I thought maybe there is a business to be built to provide really business related, actionable information for the language industry, and that would have helped me. So basically, I built something that I thought would have been helpful to me at the time. And then that kind of coincided with my return to Switzerland. So we started Slator, and it's been 10 years. And we've published what must have been, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 articles by now. So like free pieces of content on the internet. We also have a research component. So if you want to dig deeper, we have, research reports that are going into all kinds of topics. Of course, now it's a lot about AI, but it's also about media localization and other kind of subtopics. Then we do advisory work, and we also host a conference series that we call SlatorCon. So, but all is under the banner or the tagline of language industry intelligence, which I'm very happy to say is still relevant as a tagline in 2024 as it was in 2014 or 15 when we kind of came up with it, right? So while the industry is obviously moving very quickly, the need for really actionable information for business leader remains. And I'm very glad to see AfroLinguals launch, because we could never be as close to the ground as you are in Africa, right? So this is really filling a gap that I doubt anybody else could have been able to fill. So yeah, that's a bit just the backstory to Slator, and I'm glad to be here and share it with you.
Okay, thank you. Exactly as you have indicated, there is this need of having quality information about what's happening in the industry. But we also know how sustainability is one of the key elements of any business, that thrive in the language service industry. So we'd like to know, Johan, what are some of the challenges that you have seen, probably similar initiative or LSP facing when it has to do with, sustainability in terms of profitability? Do you, what are some of the, challenges that you expect such publication could have, and what do you think will be done to mitigate that?
Yeah, I think the main challenges for any magazine, and I'm sure Florian is intimately familiar with that, is maintaining a steady readership, and then obviously securing funding in terms of advertisements, and so on. But I think for AfroLinguals, that might be even a bigger challenge, is that African language services for under-resourced languages are not, let's say, as wealthy as some international partners might be, so they might not be able to afford a multilingual or a Slator or a something advertisement, but they would be able to give advice and provide insight and might be able to have their company visible, even if it is a freelancer, visible in a magazine like AfroLinguals that is targeted at the certain market they it might not be a hit and miss that it might be for a multilingual or something. So I think maintaining steady leadership and funding might be some of the biggest challenges. But I think the main solution for that, and I've actually had a discussion on LinkedIn with someone about it, is people are, I think we're sort of in a social media short attention span world, and people are sort of hungry for proper, well researched, fact-based initiatives and articles and magazines. And this person that I spoke to on LinkedIn specifically was flabbergasted, astounded about why he is gaining so many followers in such a short amount of time. And the reason is people are hungry for great content. He provides that great content, so people will follow him. And I think that's why Slator and Multilingual and GALA and so on have amassed the loyal followers, because they specifically provide good content. People are sick and tired of short 7-second things. They especially in our industry, they want content that they can relate to, that they can get takeaways from, that they can learn from. And so I think if AfroLinguals can sustain that high level of quality, I think we're looking at a bright future.
Okay, thank you so much. And as you have indicated, GALA among those who are actually, creating high level of quality content. It will be good to hear from one of those in charge of that, the content strategist. So, Isabella, how do you ensure accuracy? How do you ensure, consistent access to quality insight, from the community? How do you involve them, in the creation of quality resources? So if you could share that, that would be interesting, I believe, for those who are.
Sure. Well, my work is actually pretty easy because we have volunteers like Johan and many others who come up with great ideas. So every quarter, we have a call for content. We have committees, different committees, and I suggest topics that I think could be relevant. And they suggest contributors, and so I go and talk to them, and decide which contribution is right for this moment, and maybe something for another moment. And of course, yes, there is a fact-checking moment when I have to go online and do line edit and everything. But as I said, our contributors are extremely detail-oriented, and so they make my work pretty easy, I have to say. Is it difficult to maintain this kind of flow of content? Well, sometimes it is, because we're all busy with work, with other things. We all have social lives, hopefully. So sometimes people will, react a bit late to a call of content. They're late with an article, but we always manage to fill our content calendar. And we also give strict requirements of what we want. We want practical information. We want use cases, especially now with AI. you end up otherwise having a series of articles on why AI is not going to replace humans and stuff like that. So we guide our contributors a little bit on what kind of information they should put either on a page or a webinar. But in general, as I said, GALA members make my work very, very easy. So.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing specifically about the process you are going through, and we can clearly see that the process is collaborative because various members of the committee are sharing ideas. You vote which best topic, and you receive contribution. And I believe one of the key elements for publication is, aside, the quality is the originality, of the topics discuss, the originality of the perspective which are being shared. So we would really like to know, Florian, at your level, how do you maintain that freshness? How do you maintain that you always stay on top and you always strive, by being constantly interesting or useful to your audience? What are some of the best practices that you have in place to ensure that your content actually responds to needs and is actually of value? What are some of the best practices that you have put in place? Your mic is muted.
The classic. The last 2 years have been quite helpful in helping us stay fresh because so much is happening, right? This is not an industry that's moving slowly. This is an industry at the very forefront of literally the biggest mega trend in the last 30 years, which is artificial intelligence. Now, people may have gotten sick about hearing about AI, but if anybody knows anything about AI, it's the language industry, because these models are built on things that they're based on machine translation. So the big environment helps us stay fresh. Now, it's hard. Our job, I guess, as I see it, is help separate the signal from the noise, because there's a lot of noise. So how do you do that? Our process is we have a very, very large editorial funnel, and different from GALA, we're not contribution driven, so we do almost everything in-house. So we have a big funnel. We have a couple of researchers that work on this every day. We look at 30, 40, 50, 60 individual items. And then we look at whether we want to cover them or not. And maybe we cover 1 or 2 or 3. Maybe we don't cover anything from the things that we see out there happening. We look at social media, we look at LinkedIn, we look at press releases and everything. And then we decide internally which one to cover, and then we allocate it to a writer. And there's still a lot of value in the curation and in having all these 50, 60 items there. So half of it would make it into our daily newsletter, right? Which we send out. And then we just link to the original source. So 1 or 2 pieces we cover in-house, and the rest gets put into the newsletter. And again, we keep it very tight. We keep it in-house. And then we also, of course, generate our own original content. For example, you were kind enough to join us on the podcast, Christian, recently. So that's what I consider original content, right? So we have you there, and that gives us, a video on YouTube, that gives us an article that accompanies it. And then, of course, we also have the conferences where you have a lot of very interesting presentations. And from there, we also draw original content that isn't, based on anything else. So that's, I hope, what keeps our content fresh. On the one side, it's being very, it's that the industry itself is super interesting. Second is that we try to be very quick when something happens. We try to cover it very quickly. And then the third one is we feel that by keeping it in-house, we can keep it more or less a fairly strict editorial policy and separate the signal from the noise.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. One key element that you highlighted, the fact that, the AI revolution is actually starting with the language industry, because large language. So it starts with language. And in the current edition of AfroLingual, there is this wonderful article by Mr. Samuel Olanrewaju, who is also part of us. So we want to acknowledge his presence. So welcome in our we are blessed to see you, Samuel. And in his article, he's basically explain the fact that there is this, discrepancy between linguists and tech company. It looks like, tech or machine learning experts are taking advantage more of, the advantages of the language industry more than us. And there are very few actually in Africa who are equipped and trained to take advantage of the current AI revolution. If you look on the market in Africa, there are very few who are trained in things like data annotation, machine learning, very few linguists have computational linguistic, training to enable them to create solutions that will make African languages or languages in general more accessible, so it's quite interesting in that regard. So one aspect which I would like us to look, and that will be the last one, is economics. As we all know, a business needs to generate profit, revenue to thrive. So GALA has been existing for over a decade, and Slator also, and we also have ALCA, which is just few years coming up. How does resources contribute to the growth of an LSP or of a business, of an association? What is the quota that your publication is playing in terms of revenue, and what are the various systems which you have in place to ensure that people are willing to buy to have to your content? This is a very key element, especially because in Africa in general, or in general in the global south, there is this traditional appetite for things that are free. People like things that are free. So for example, this first edition is going to be free. So we are witnessing thousands of downloads. Thousands. Why? It is free. But once you put a little paywall, oh, this publication takes time to be made. Can you subscribe? Pay $5, $10 per month to have access. Then the dynamics change. People start thinking, should I really? Of course, we know it's all connected to value, but we would like to know from Florian to Johan and Isabella, how do you see, publication contributing to the profitability, to income generation, and what are the practices that you have in place at the level of your respective structure? So anyone? Yes, Florian.
Sorry, I was trying to hand over to Isabella, but I can go first and then let them go. Probably 90% of the content we publish is free, so maybe even more. And we hope it's valuable, right? So by giving away all that free content, I think you're creating a great and loyal community of people that, if they feel that there's value in the 10% of content that you're publishing paid, that they're willing to actually spend money on. And to keep it very short, how do you make people spend money on content? Well, only if they feel they can actually spend money on it, but make a return on that investment. So they get your report, they learn from it, and that report or that piece of content enables them to make more money. So you're more informed. You enter a new field. You get a new idea, and you branch into another area of business, and then the investment in an initial piece of content actually delivered a return. So give away a lot for free. That creates a loyal community, and then make something that people feel that creates a return on investment on the part that you will have to charge for, because giving everything for free is probably not sustainable in the long term either.
Okay. Isabella, what is the strategy that you use to monetize, or increase the value of your content?
We have only a certain amount of content that is free. Like the articles are all free, and you can contribute whether you're a GALA member or not. And then we have all the rest is paid content. Free for our members, but paid for the non-members. So the webinars, the GALA Academy. We also have now barometer reports, which are surveys that my colleague Jessica Di Pietro is conducting, and developing into reports about AI, financial benchmarking, etc. And those are all free for members and, again, paid for non-members. And the point is that people are curious. So, like probably in the case of Slator, they buy a piece of content, buy a report, attend a webinar, maybe 2 or 3. And then once you see how the content is curated, well presented, detailed, informative, unbiased, because that's also another thing that we try to do. We try to be unbiased and offer, objective information. That's when they decide, in our case, to maybe become members or attend a conference, are on your conference, or buy a report, etc. So that's more or less the strategy, which I think is for almost every digital publication. If I think, I don't know, the New York Times, you read 10 articles for free, maybe a month, or even less. Same for the New Yorker or any other. So, you attract people with the quality of your content, the part that is free, and then hopefully they'll switch down and they'll go down the funnel a little bit.
Okay. And we'll close with Johan. Johan, in terms of paid publication in the language industry, what has been your experience?
Well, I think certainly for us, people ask, and we get that for ALCA as well, why should we be a member? What is it in it for me? But I think the moment that, and that's why education is so important for me. If you as a LSP sitting in your country, in your silo, don't know that there is, you mentioned Lalapa, who is from South Africa, who created a language, an LLM for African languages. Some of those languages that they have there aren't just South African languages. So you're sitting there in your country and let's say Kenya, and you don't know about this language model for Swahili. Let's try and use it, and you find that it works for you, and you as a company make money from it. So directly the value that you get from the education in the magazine, where it mentions this a new LLM, the minute that you use that education to the advantage of the company, and even the translator, if it's a magazine introducing a new CAT tool or a new TMS or something that you can use actively in your business, then I think the minute that people see that there is that opportunity, then they will gladly pay an amount. And I think mostly for these days digital magazines, if you really think about it, it mostly is not that expensive for what you get. If it is a quality magazine or a publication, for what you might get in education and in interviews and so on, it's not that much. So I think if you can convince people and actually show them case studies or something where the content and what you teach is helping their business make money, then they will be willing to pay for it.
Okay, so we just launched a quick poll to kind of whet, the interest and buying interest of our audience. We have 13 people. Please, if you are part of the meeting, there is a quick poll where we basically assess your interest in buying, so we can see interesting trends. So we have, out of 14 people, for 64% are willing to pay for the quarterly subscription between $5 to $7. We have 21% who are between $7 to $10, and 14% who are between 10 to 15. So it's quite interesting to see this, and we are going to factor all of these elements in the design of the next edition, which is going to be through subscription. It is going to be available through the afrolingual.com platform. So thank you all to those who have participated in the poll. Now, we would like to hear from our panelists. What is your last word as we move towards the last part of this event? Your concluding words, please, about the future of AfroLingual and the future of education for language service professional.
Well, perhaps I can start since all of you have started before. I think what is important for me is, and that's again, I come back to Alka, is the collective advocacy that a magazine like this might have is if a lot of people, or if you have an opinion poll or an article or something that says this is the trend that the industry in Africa has, whether it be money or payment or rates per word or so on, you can get people talking about it and highlight that and get that collective advocacy. You're not seeing people in sitting there in your silos, not knowing about what is going on in the industry, how much people are willing to pay. So the advocacy for African languages, promoting language professionals, promoting what is going on in the countries, specific countries and on the continent. This is what the tech industry is doing on the continent to showcase this is actually very vibrant. People are sometimes scared of investing in Africa because they really don't know what to do, where to begin. So I think advocating in a magazine like this for your language, for your country, for your cause is important as it drives greater visibility. And then financial support across the continent that can contribute to the industry's sustainability in Africa.
Okay. Johan, Florian, or Isabella, your last word?
Famous last words. So I think what it already has done and will continue to do so, AfroLinguals with the launch now, and as you keep publishing, is creating a sense of community for the language industry in Africa as a whole, right? I mean, historically, there maybe hasn't been perceived as like a kind of a coherent market, and you're establishing this now with it, right? We have organizations in North America, we have organizations in Europe, we have GALA that does it globally, but for Africa now, you're basically setting this up now from scratch. So I wish you best of luck with this. I think it's an extremely valuable initiative, and I look forward to reading it and sharing it and talking to people about it.
Okay, Isabella?
Well, I'm just very happy that I know now about this digital magazine, and I'm definitely going to read it in the future because I want to know more about the African market, of which I know only what Johan has told me. So it's going to be a good moment for me to fact check whether the information that Johan is giving me is correct. I'm sure it is, but the African localization industry is for me completely new. So there's a digital magazine like this one, and I'm hoping that at some time we can even collaborate.
Okay, thank you so much. So we would like to hear from participants before we close. Do you have questions for the panelists from everything that was said? Do you have questions about the magazine? Please, this is your time. You can use the chat box or raise your hand and you pick the floor and you speak directly. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Hervé Iruri, please go ahead, please.
Thank you very much for the welcome. Me, I have a question. You have been talking about the problem of income and finances in this language industry. For me, my question is, I have been experiencing different kind of behaviors towards Africa. For example, we see most of African countries are not developed and they're struggling towards that development. People are facing different problems. Now, in that issue, we see different organizations trying to contribute, and the most of them are foreign organizations. And of course, because they are not expecting income or other financial benefits. But when we come on the continent, it's like everybody is struggling on his own, and nobody is willing to contribute for the betterment of the situation on the continent. Now the question is, what are you planning as African language industry to contribute to bring back hope and optimistic future to young Africans who are faced by different problems nowadays? Now we see them running away. The most of the developed countries are faced with illegal migration. So what are you contributing in bringing hope to young Africans as African language industry? Thank you.
I think you're
You're right.
muted, Christian.
Well, I was asking Johan, would you like to take this? What is being done currently in the language industry and make things better?
I think it is very difficult, and especially for a freelance translator, it's very difficult to break into the market. You have things like expensive tools, you have expensive electricity, expensive connectivity, costs for internet, and so on. So it's difficult to break into the market, but I think that's specifically why a magazine like this and Alka and the marketplace that Kabod set up is important, because that's where you can get the insight, that's where you can get the education. If you only hear about an expensive cat tool, Trados or something, but there is a open source free version that works good for African translators, that has an offline version, for example, that you can use in times where you don't have electricity or you don't have access to internet. Then that enhances your role in the industry, because you are getting the education to make yourself better, where to start, where to advertise, if you don't have that much money, how to put yourself there on LinkedIn, what a good LinkedIn profile looks like. Just educating is important. And I think what people in Africa sometimes, Christian spoke about the I want it for free thing, is you rarely going to get the value of something if you also don't put something in. And you'll find African people are hesitant to put the effort in, but the minute that you do, you will immediately see and I've experienced that many times during my 20 years. The minute that you engage with people, you you find out that we are all struggling with the same issues, but this is how I solved it in my country. Perhaps it works there for you. And something that I'm actually advocating for is mentorship, because that is not a big thing in Africa. You have overseas, we Folio host interns that come for 6 months, but in various African, especially in South Africa, which is supposed to be a hub for the industry, most internships is 2 weeks. And what can you teach someone in 2 weeks? So I think mentorships is very important. Getting access to someone that is experienced and willing to put in the time for you is important. And a publication like AfroLinguals can then advocate for something like that, saying, call to action, what can we do to get the younger, newer generation educated in the industry, and that way bringing up sustainability to the industry, uplifting it. And also that's where I think ALCA comes in, because people are not aware of what is being done, what can be done. They might sit there in the country and with their head in their hair, with their hands in their hair, to where can I go? What can I do? And that's why it's important, magazines like this. You're muted, Christian.
Okay, any more question from the participant? Any more question? We can take 2 more before we close. Any question do you have about the magazine, about the panelists, everything that was said, your expectation? Okay, so let me check the chat. Okay, chat. Do you welcome voluntary translation service for the magazine? Yes. We welcome voluntary translation service. Yes. So those of you who are interested in contributing with knowledge, and that's actually what I will focus on, now. Who are interested, if you are here and you are having experience as a translator, interpreters, localization manager in the African market, we welcome contribution. You can reach out to our operations manager, the head of the language service industry, the head of language services at Kabod, Miss Rebecca Agree, and she's going to reach out to you and support you in the process to publish your articles. So we gladly welcome anybody here who are interested in sharing. And indeed, as Johan has been sharing, a lot is being done in the language service industry. And if, for the sake of the question that Mr. Eve asked, I would like to share something brief here, which could be answering that. So, can you see my screen?
Yes,
Can you see
go ahead.
Can you see my screen?
It was there, but seems to be gone.
Okay, let me check it out. Okay. So, okay, so the question basically was what is being done? I think Johan did a good to share, some of the elements that were actually being done. I would like to share more from the Kabod perspective. So basically, Kabod, as indicated during the podcast which we had with Florian, Kabod is not just an LSP as many others. We have this, non-profit aspect in terms of ensuring that platforms, systems that will ultimately build the language industry are being in place. So in our strategy, known as Trace, this is the 5 key pillars that all of what we do are focusing on. The first aspect is at the level of technology and regulatory environment. We know that policies influence a lot what's happening in an industry. So we are together with Folio Online, with Bolingo Consult and Can Translation in Kenya, various LSP from each of the region of Africa. We put in place ALCA. ALCA stands for the Association of Language Company in Africa. And we sincerely believe that ALCA will contribute in influencing the environment, the ecosystem. We also have a podcast where we basically highlight those who are active in that space. At the level of research and innovation, which is the second pillar to build an industry, we have AfroLingual and we have our blogs. So if you go on kabodgroup.com, you will find a lot of interesting resources. Our upcoming resource will be on, 13 ways to make African language sexy. So we share basic ideas, basic things, which, if implemented, will enable African language to be more visible and used globally and in Africa also. A third pillar to build an industry is access to market and trade. And this is where the MATI platform is bringing value. MATI stands for the Marketplace for African Translator and Interpreters. As indicated, through the MATI platform, many translators are getting gigs, many are getting jobs, because when someone needs something, he posts it on the platform and people quickly respond. At the level of the sustainability and resilience, this is where we see money, business, we have ALCA, which is there to facilitate that, and ALAT. And at the level of the education space, recently there was a very interesting event organized by Land Africa, where Mr. Samuel, one of the key elements that was shared was the fact that there is a need for continuous professional development for language professionals in Africa. We can't grow the industry without growing ourselves. How well we know and master, language technology, the business of language in the language industry, the better we will go far. So to facilitate that education aspect, we have, a monthly talk, Kabod Language Talk, which is where we bring together various experts on different issues to discuss. We have also our podcasts, which are available. So basically, Mr. Eve, this is to show that a lot is happening. And so far, we have engaged with more than 6,000 people. We are currently building partnership with the University of Ghana to see how best to put in place certification for African languages, because if we have more certification, then the translators and interpreters in this language have more value. We also, as indicated, are having the KLS talk and the rest. Some of the lessons learned that we have got is that collaboration and partnership are key. We can't do this together. It's impossible to build an industry alone. So the more we strengthen, the more we come together, the more we work together, the farther we will go. There is this African proverb which says that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go with others. And that's basically the mindset at the level of Kabod. In anything we do, we try as much as possible to do it along with others in the industry, because we believe that we are stronger together. There is this need of capacity building also, as indicated. So as we close, we would like to launch the call for contribution. We are actively working for the second edition of the magazine, which is going to focus on the language learning market in Africa. There are many apps, there are many tools, there are many teachers who can teach online, who are teaching languages here and there, but we really want to have more insight As Johan indicated, as Florian indicated, we need facts, we need quality-based information, evidence-backed information on the language service industry. It is this quality insight that will enable us to attract investors, that will enable us to be able of doing real business, because it's impossible to do real business without quality information. So for those of you who are teaching, who are researching on the topic of the language learning, please reach out. We will be doing a survey to kind of have an estimation of the economic potential of language learning in Africa. So if you are developing apps to learn African language, we know about Ene, we know about speaking Yoruba, we know there are many apps out there, but we want to document what is happening and how multilingualism is influencing the language learning market. So our email to submit your contribution are down there: elongue@kabodgroup.com, language@kabodgroup.com. And also, if you are here, you are good at editing, you are good at social media, and you would like to volunteer or be part of the Kabod of the Kabod team, do reach out. Do reach out reach out to Madam Rebecca, and she will be adding you to the existing platform. We have a committee of volunteers who are actively contributing in making the magazine a reality. You could be a graphic designer, and a copywriter, an editor, a proofreader. You could be an assistant in the research for the data collection. Like, there is space for everybody who is willing to work to make this a reality. So on this note, and since we have exhausted the time allocated for this, we would like to say asante. Don't ask me why am I using African languages at the end. We believe that there is still a journey for us to get to a stage where we can have such meetings purely in African languages. But for now, we use lingua franca, English, and we'd like to say asante. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to the wonderful people who are here. Thank you to the wonderful Kabod language team, without which this work will not have been possible. Don't see me here. I'm just, coming to close, but a lot of background work was done by the wonderful team, especially those I would like to acknowledge Mrs. Rebecca, who is the chief organizer, who has been reaching out to the panelists, securing, the invitation and all of those things. So thank you so much, Rebecca. Thank you also to Aris, Aris Fotso, who is the webmaster who has designed the platform where you can download, the magazine. Thank you also to Jerry, the Swasi. The magazine was actually designed by him. So as you see how the magazine is beautifully crafted, that is thanks to the work of Jerry. We also like to thank Jean, who is our translation officer, who has been very instrumental in the press release to news platform to be aware of what is happening in the industry. And to the entire Kabod team, I cannot mention everybody. We would like to acknowledge Christiana Boabeng from Alca. We would like to acknowledge everybody who is here, who has participated in one way or the other to the manifestation of this historic moment which we are currently living. And as Florian has said, 10 years has passed quickly since Slator was established. And we also look forward to 10 years from now, to 2034, when AfroLingual will be celebrating its 10th year of existence. What a long journey so far. And we know that this will not be possible. Wonderful support of those that you are here. Also want to acknowledge Mrs. AC Tometi from the Ghana Association of Translators and Interpreters, and everybody else. Thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to continuously engage with you. Let the conversation continue on social media, on the existing platforms, and we look forward to connecting next month for our next language talk events. So thank you, Florian. Thank you, Isabella. Thank you, Johan. On this note, we will close. So let's all put our camera for a group picture and we'll close. If you can put your camera, please do so. Now that we can't do meetings in person, group pictures on Zoom usually serve for that. So if that's possible on your side, kindly put your camera on. Okay, more and more. If you can put your camera, please do so. Miss Augusta Achampong, welcome. Mr. Hope Bediako, welcome. Okay, so we believe these are those who like to be part of the picture. So if you are not interested, anybody else would like to put his camera on for the picture? Okay, now a nice smile. Okay, so that's done. Thank you so much. And we wish you a blessed end of week and see you next time. Don't forget to download the magazine and to share your feedback. Thank you. Bye.